Single dad takes 3 bullets to shield a wealthy pilot and his daughter from armed attackers. The pilot once called him nobody and banned their daughter's friendship. Now, fighting for life in hospital, this poor father's sacrifice shakes an entire city and forces the arrogant pilot to face a devastating truth about real wealth. Before you watch full story, comment below from which country are you watching. Don't forget to subscribe for more amazing stories. The rain fell hard on the streets of Riverside City. David Chen stood outside Lincoln Elementary School, waiting for his daughter Emma. His hands were cold, but his heart was warm. Every day, he waited here. Every day, he watched other parents come in expensive cars while he stood with his old jacket and worn shoes. David was a single father. His wife Sarah had died 3 years ago from cancer. Since that day, Emma was his whole world. She was 8 years old, with bright eyes and a smile that could light up the darkest room. David worked 2 jobs to give her a good life. He cleaned offices at night and worked at a warehouse during the day. He was always tired, but he never complained. Emma was worth every sacrifice. Daddy. Emma ran toward him, her backpack bouncing on her small shoulders. Behind her walked another girl, quiet and shy. Hi, sweetheart, David hugged his daughter tight. Who's your friend? This is Lily, Emma said with excitement. She's new in our class. Her daddy flies airplanes. Lily looked up at David with nervous eyes. She had long dark hair and wore an expensive school uniform. David smiled at her warmly. Hello, Lily. That's very cool about your father. He flies big planes, Lily whispered. But he's always busy. David understood that feeling. Being a parent was hard, especially when you had to work so much. Where's your father now? David asked gently. He's late again, Lily said, looking at the ground. He's always late. David's heart hurt for this little girl. He knew what it felt like to be alone. You can wait with us, David offered. Right, Emma? Yes. Please stay, Lily. Emma grabbed her new friend's hand. They waited together under the school roof, protected from the rain. 20 minutes passed. Then 30. The school was almost empty now. Only a few teachers remained inside. Finally, a black luxury car pulled up. A tall man in a pilot's uniform stepped out. He looked important and serious. His name was Captain Richard Morrison, one of the most famous pilots in the city. He flew international routes and made a lot of money. Lily. Let's go, he called out, not even getting out of the car properly. Daddy, this is my friend Emma and her father. Not now, Lily. I have a meeting. Captain Morrison barely looked at David and Emma. He just grabbed Lily's hand and pulled her toward the car. Lily looked back at Emma with sad eyes. Bye, Emma. David felt anger rise in his chest, but he pushed it down. He had learned long ago that rich people often forgot about kindness. Don't worry about him, Emma, David said softly. Let's go home and make your favorite dinner. Emma smiled, but David could see she felt bad for her new friend. Days turned into weeks. Emma and Lily became best friends at school. Lily started coming to their small apartment after school because Captain Morrison was always working. David didn't mind. He loved seeing Emma happy, and Lily was a sweet girl who needed love. David made them simple meals, pasta, sandwiches, homemade soup. Lily ate everything with joy. This is so good, Mr. Chen, Lily would say. We have a cook at home, but the food doesn't taste like this. That's because I cook with love, David would wink at both girls. Lily started calling him Uncle David. She would hug him when she arrived and when she left. David's heart grew bigger with each hug. This little girl needed a father's love, and he had plenty to give. Captain Morrison never came to pick up Lily. He always sent his driver, a quiet man named Thomas who barely spoke. The driver would arrive at 7 in the evening, take Lily, and leave. No thank you, no conversation, nothing. One evening, David decided to send a note with Lily. Dear Captain Morrison, Lily is always welcome here, but I thought you should know she stays with us almost every day after school. Perhaps we could meet and talk. David Chen. The next day, Lily came back with a reply. It was short and cold. Thank you for watching, Lily. I'm very busy with work. I'll pay you for your time if needed. David felt insulted. He crumpled the note and threw it away. He didn't want money. He wanted this man to see what he was missing, his own daughter's childhood. Is everything okay, Daddy? Emma asked, seeing his face. Everything is fine, Princess, David lied, forcing a smile. 3 months passed. It was December now, and the city prepared for Christmas. David saved every penny he could to buy Emma a good present. She wanted an art set with real paints and brushes. It cost $50, a huge amount for David, but he would make it work. Lily became like a second daughter to him. She spent weekends at their apartment. David taught both girls how to bake cookies, how to paint, how to be kind to others. Lily bloomed like a flower. She smiled more, laughed more, talked more. One Saturday afternoon, something changed. Captain Morrison came to pick up Lily himself. He knocked on David's door, still in his uniform. David opened the door and saw the tall, proud pilot standing there. I'm here for Lily, Captain Morrison said coldly. Of course. Please come in, David stepped aside. Captain Morrison walked into the small apartment and looked around. His face showed everything, judgment, superiority, disgust. He saw the old furniture, the small kitchen, the cracked wall paint. Lily. Let's go, he called out. Lily ran from Emma's bedroom, her face covered in paint. Both girls had been making Christmas cards. Daddy. Look what Uncle David taught us. Lily showed him a card with a painted Christmas tree. Captain Morrison barely looked at it. Wash your face. We're leaving. But Daddy, we're not finished. Now, Lily. David felt his jaw tighten. He wanted to say something, but he held back. This was not his child, not his place to speak. Lily's eyes filled with tears. She ran to the bathroom. Thank you for your time, Mr. Chen, Captain Morrison said without warmth. But Lily won't be coming here anymore. David's heart dropped. What? Why? She doesn't need to spend time in a place like this. I'm enrolling her in an after-school program at the country club. She'll be with children from proper families. The words hit David like a slap. Proper families. As if love could be measured by money. Captain Morrison, David spoke carefully, trying to control his anger. Lily is happy here. She and Emma are best friends. Don't you see how much she's grown? What I see is my daughter wasting time in a poor man's apartment. No offense, but you're not her family. You're nobody to her. Those words, you're nobody to her, cut deeper than any knife. Emma appeared from the bedroom, tears running down her face. She had heard everything. Lily is my best friend. Emma cried. Please don't take her away. Captain Morrison ignored her completely. Lily came out from the bathroom, her face clean but her eyes red. Say goodbye, Lily, her father ordered. Lily ran to David and hugged him tight. I don't want to go, Uncle David. Please tell him I can stay. David's own eyes filled with tears. He knelt down and held both girls. Sometimes we can't control what happens, he whispered. But remember, you'll always be friends in your hearts. Nobody can take that away. Captain Morrison pulled Lily away roughly. Enough of this drama. Let's go. As they left, Lily looked back at David and Emma, crying. The door closed, and the apartment felt empty. Emma collapsed into her father's arms, sobbing. "Why is he so mean, Daddy? Why?" David held his daughter and cried with her. "Some people forget what matters, sweetheart. They think money makes them better than others. But it doesn't. Love makes us rich, not money." That night, David couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about Lily's sad face, about Emma's broken heart, about Captain Morrison's cruel words. But most of all, he thought about how some people have everything but understand nothing. 2 weeks passed. Emma was sad every day. She didn't want to go to school because Lily ignored her there. Captain Morrison had told his daughter to stay away from Emma. Lily obeyed her father, but David could see the pain in her eyes when she passed Emma in the hallways. It was the last day before Christmas break. David went to pick up Emma as usual. The weather was cold, and snow had started falling. Emma came out slowly, her face down. "No Lily today?" David asked gently. "She pretends I don't exist," Emma whispered. "Her daddy told her I'm not good enough." David's heart shattered. He pulled Emma close. "You are more than good enough. You are everything good in this world." As they walked toward the parking lot, David heard shouting. He looked up and saw 3 men surrounding Captain Morrison near his car. They looked dangerous. One had a gun. "You destroyed my brother's career," one man yelled. "You reported him and got him fired. Now our family has nothing." David's blood ran cold. This was a revenge attack. Captain Morrison backed away, fear on his face for the first time. "I only followed the rules." He was drinking before flights. He was dangerous. "And now you'll pay." The man raised his gun. Inside the car, David could see Lily screaming, her small hands pressed against the window. Everything happened in slow motion. The gunman aimed at Captain Morrison. Teachers screamed. Parents grabbed their children and ran. But David didn't run. He ran forward. "Emma, stay back," he shouted. David ran straight toward the danger, toward the gunman, toward death. He didn't think about himself. He only thought about Lily, that sweet girl who called him Uncle David, who needed protection. The gunman fired. The first bullet hit David in the shoulder. He stumbled but kept running. The second bullet hit his chest. Pain exploded through his body, but he reached Captain Morrison and pushed him down. "Run!" David choked out blood. "Get your daughter." The third bullet hit David in the stomach. He fell to the ground, his vision blurring. He heard screams, sirens, chaos. He felt hands on him, felt his blood soaking through his clothes. "Daddy! Daddy!" Emma's voice sounded far away. David tried to focus. He saw Captain Morrison running to his car, grabbing Lily, holding her tight. He saw the gunman running away. He saw the snow turning red with his blood. "Stay with me, sir," someone shouted. "Ambulance is coming." David's eyes found Emma. She was crying, being held back by a teacher. He tried to smile at her. "Be strong, princess," he whispered, though she couldn't hear him. "Be strong." Then everything went black. David woke up 4 days later in the hospital. Pain was everywhere. His body felt like fire. Machines beeped around him. Tubes connected to his arms. "Dad!" Emma's voice brought him back to life. She was there, sitting beside his bed, her eyes swollen from crying. Behind her stood his sister Rachel, who had come from another city. "Emma," David's voice was weak. "You're okay." "I'm okay, Daddy." "But you almost died." Fresh tears ran down her face. Where is Lily? Is she safe?" "She's safe," Rachel said softly. "You saved them both. You're a hero." David didn't feel like a hero. He felt like a father who did what any father would do. The door opened. Captain Morrison walked in, and David barely recognized him. The proud, cold man was gone. In his place stood someone broken, humbled, changed. "Mr. Chen," Captain Morrison's voice shook. I don't have words." David tried to sit up, but pain stopped him. "Lily," he whispered. "She's outside. She wants to see you." Captain Morrison came closer to the bed. "You saved my life. You saved my daughter. And I treated you like trash. I treated you like you were nothing." Tears ran down the pilot's face. David had never seen a man look so ashamed. "You were right about everything," Captain Morrison continued. "I was so busy trying to be successful that I forgot to be a father. I was so focused on money that I forgot about love. And you, a man I looked down on, you showed me what real wealth is." "Anyone would have done it," David said weakly. "No," Captain Morrison shook his head. "No, they wouldn't. You ran toward danger when everyone else ran away. You took bullets for a man who insulted you, for a child who wasn't even yours. That's not normal. That's extraordinary." David looked at Emma. She smiled at him through her tears. "Can I bring Lily in?" Captain Morrison asked. "She hasn't stopped crying since the shooting. She needs to see you." David nodded. Lily burst through the door and ran to his bed. She was careful not to hurt him, but she put her small hand in his. "Uncle David," she sobbed. "You saved my daddy. You saved me." "Of course I did," David whispered. "I love you, Lily. You're like my own daughter." Captain Morrison broke down completely. He sat in a chair and put his face in his hands, his shoulders shaking with sobs. "I'm sorry," he kept saying. "I'm so sorry." Emma walked over to Lily and took her hand. The two best friends stood together, watching the man who loved them both fight to stay alive. David spent 3 weeks in the hospital. The bullets had done terrible damage. Doctors said he was lucky to be alive. One bullet had missed his heart by 2 centimeters. Another had damaged his lung. The third had torn through his stomach. But David survived. Every single day, Captain Morrison came to visit. He brought flowers, food, books, anything he could think of. He sat by David's bed and talked, really talked, for the first time in his life. "I grew up poor," Captain Morrison confessed one day. "My father was a drunk who left us. My mother worked 3 jobs. I promised myself I would be rich, successful, important. And I became all those things. But somewhere along the way, I became the very thing I hated, someone who judged others by their money." David listened without judgment. "After my wife died 2 years ago," Captain Morrison continued, "I buried myself in work. I couldn't face being alone with Lily. Every time I looked at her, I saw my dead wife. So I avoided her. I sent her away with nannies, drivers, anyone but me. I'm a coward, David." "You're the brave one." "You're not a coward," David said. "You're just hurt. We all handle pain differently." "You lost your wife too," Captain Morrison pointed out. "But you didn't run from Emma. You ran toward her. You made her your whole world." "Because she's all I have," David said simply. "And that makes me the richest man alive." Those words changed something in Captain Morrison's eyes. Lily and Emma visited together every day after school. They did their homework in David's hospital room, chattering about their day, making him laugh despite the pain. Captain Morrison would arrive in the evening and sit with all of them, learning how to be present, learning how to love. One day, a reporter came to the hospital. The story had spread through the city, a poor single father taking bullets to save a rich pilot and his daughter. People were touched. They wanted to know more. "Mr. Chen, why did you do it?" the reporter asked. You could have died. Why risk your life for people who treated you badly? David thought about the question carefully. Because that little girl needed her father, he said finally. And Emma needed her best friend. It wasn't about Captain Morrison being rich or me being poor. It was about children needing to be protected. It was about doing what's right. The interview aired on local news. The story spread like fire. Soon, the whole city knew about David Chen, the single father who worked 2 jobs, who welcomed a lonely girl into his home, who took bullets to save a life. People were moved. Donations started pouring in. Strangers sent money to help with David's medical bills. Others sent gifts for Emma and Lily. The warehouse where David worked announced they would hold his job and keep paying him during recovery. The office building where he cleaned at night started a fund for him. But the biggest change was in Captain Morrison. David, he said one evening, I want to do something. I want to help you. You've done enough, David protested. You visit every day. You've been kind. No, Captain Morrison interrupted. I want to really help. Your medical bills are enormous. Your apartment is too small. You work too hard. Please, let me help you. It's the least I can do. David was silent. He had always been independent, always made his own way. I'm not offering charity, Captain Morrison added quickly. I'm offering friendship. Real friendship. The kind where we help each other. David looked at Emma and Lily playing cards in the corner. They were laughing, completely absorbed in their game. Okay, David said quietly. But only if you promise me something. Anything. Spend more time with Lily. Really be her father. That's all I want. Captain Morrison nodded, tears in his eyes. I promise. I've already cut back my flights. I'm home most evenings now. Lily and I have dinner together every night. We talk, really talk. You taught me that. David finally came home in January. Captain Morrison had arranged for a ground-floor apartment in a better neighborhood, same rent, but safer and bigger. He had also set up a fund for Emma's education. I don't want your money, David had protested. It's not my money, Captain Morrison explained. It's from the donations. People gave specifically for Emma's education. I'm just managing it. David couldn't argue with that. The first night back home, Emma crawled into bed with her father. Daddy, are you happy? She asked. Very happy, sweetheart. Why do you ask? Because Lily's daddy said you changed his life. Did he change yours? David thought about it. Yes, he did. He reminded me that people can change. That nobody is beyond redemption. What's redemption? It means getting a second chance to be better. Emma nodded, understanding in her child's way. Months passed. David healed slowly but surely. The scars on his body were deep, but the scars on his heart healed too. He couldn't work at the warehouse anymore, his injuries made heavy lifting impossible. But Captain Morrison helped him get a job at the airport in administration. The pay was better, the hours were normal, and David could be home with Emma every evening. Lily became a permanent part of their family. She came over several times a week. But now, Captain Morrison came too. They would have dinner together, 2 fathers and 2 daughters. They would talk, laugh, share their days. Captain Morrison learned to cook simple meals. David taught him. They made pasta together, baked cookies together, played board games together. The proud pilot became humble, kind, present. One day, Captain Morrison brought David to his big house. It was beautiful but empty feeling. I'm selling it, he announced. What? Why? Because it's too big, too cold. I'm buying something smaller, warmer. Something that feels like a home. Like your place feels. David smiled. Homes aren't about size. They're about love. Exactly. A year after the shooting, the city held a ceremony. They wanted to honor David's bravery. The mayor gave him a medal for heroism. Newspapers wrote articles. TV stations covered the story. David stood on the stage, uncomfortable with all the attention. Emma and Lily stood beside him, holding his hands. Captain Morrison stood behind them, beaming with pride. "I'm not a hero," David said into the microphone. "I'm just a father who loves his daughter and her best friend." Any parent would have done the same. But everyone in that crowd knew the truth. Not everyone would have run toward danger. Not everyone would have taken bullets for others. Not everyone had David's heart. After the ceremony, as people celebrated, David and Captain Morrison stood together, watching their daughters play. "Thank you," Captain Morrison said quietly. "For what?" "For saving my life. Not just at the school. But saving my real life, my relationship with Lily. You showed me what I was missing. You showed me what matters." "You did the hard part," David replied. "You changed. Because you inspired me." They stood in comfortable silence, two fathers who had become brothers. Emma turned 9 in April. They had a big birthday party at the park. Captain Morrison helped organize it and paid for everything. He invited Lily's whole class, Emma's whole class, neighbors, friends, everyone. David watched Emma blow out her candles, surrounded by people who loved her. His heart was full. That night, after everyone left, Emma hugged her father tight. "Best birthday ever, Daddy." "I'm glad, Princess." "Daddy, can I ask you something?" "Anything." "Are you and Lily's daddy best friends now?" David smiled. "Yes, sweetheart. We are." "Good. Because Lily says we're sisters in our hearts. So our daddies should be brothers." From the mouths of children came the deepest wisdom. 2 years passed. David's scars faded but never disappeared. Every time he looked at them, he remembered that day, the fear, the pain, the bullets. But he also remembered the love that made him run, the courage that made him shield others, the humanity that made him care. Captain Morrison became a different man completely. He wrote a book about his experience, about how a poor single father taught him the meaning of true wealth. All profits went to charity, specifically to single parents struggling to make ends meet. Emma and Lily remained inseparable. They went to the same school, had sleepovers constantly, dreamed together about the future. One evening, David and Captain Morrison sat on David's small balcony, drinking coffee and watching the sunset. "Do you ever regret it?" Captain Morrison asked suddenly. "Regret what?" "Taking those bullets. Your body still hurts sometimes. You can't do the work you used to do. Your life changed forever." David was quiet for a long moment. "No," he said finally. "I don't regret it for even 1 second. Because of that day, Lily has a real father now. Emma has her best friend. You and I became brothers. And everyone learned that love is stronger than hate, that sacrifice is stronger than selfishness." "You're a better man than me," Captain Morrison said. "No," David corrected him gently. "I'm just a man who understands what matters. And now you understand it too. That makes us equal." Captain Morrison reached over and put his hand on David's shoulder, the same shoulder that had taken the first bullet. "Thank you, brother," he whispered. "Thank you for giving me a second family," David replied. 5 years after the shooting, David and Captain Morrison stood together at Emma and Lily's middle school graduation. The girls were 13 now, beautiful and bright, ready to face the world. "We did it," Captain Morrison said, pride in his voice. "We did," David agreed. They watched their daughters walk across the stage, holding hands, smiling at their fathers. In that moment, everything made sense, the pain, the struggle, the sacrifice, the redemption. David thought back to that rainy day when he first met Lily. He remembered the lonely little girl who needed love. He remembered the cold pilot who needed to learn humanity. He remembered the bullets, the blood, the fear. But most of all, he remembered what he learned, that love is always worth the cost. That sacrifice is never wasted. That one moment of courage can change everything. The girls ran to their fathers after the ceremony, wrapping them in hugs. "We love you, Daddy," they both said at the same time, each to their own father. David and Captain Morrison looked at each other and smiled. "We love you too," they replied together. And in that perfect moment, surrounded by love and laughter, David Chen, the single father who took bullets to save a pilot's daughter, knew that he was the richest man in the world. Not because of money. Not because of fame. But because he had love. And love, in the end, was everything. The morning sun filtered through the windows of the community center as David Chen arranged chairs for the weekly meeting. His hair had turned gray at the temples, and his movements were slower now, but his eyes still held that same warmth that had touched so many lives. "Dad, you should let me do that," Emma called out as she walked in carrying boxes of supplies. At 18, she had grown into a confident young woman studying social work at the university. Lily walked beside her, equally tall and graceful, pursuing a degree in education. "I'm not that old yet," David chuckled, though he appreciated when Emma took over the heavier lifting. This community center had become David's passion project. 3 years ago, he and Captain Morrison had founded it together, a place where single parents could find support, resources, and most importantly, community. They offered free childcare, job training, counseling services, and a warm meal every evening. "Uncle David." A little boy ran up and hugged David's legs. Behind him came his mother, Maria, a single mom who had found hope within these walls. "Thank you for watching Carlos yesterday," Maria said gratefully. "The job interview went well. They're calling me back for a second round." David's face lit up. "That's wonderful, Maria. We'll be praying for you." This was what gave David purpose now. He had turned his pain into something beautiful, his experience into wisdom that helped others. The community center served over 50 families, and the number kept growing. Captain Morrison arrived shortly after, carrying his briefcase. He had reduced his flying schedule to just 2 trips a month, spending the rest of his time managing the center's finances and fundraising efforts. He had become a master at writing grant proposals and connecting with donors who believed in their mission. "Morning, brother," Richard greeted David with a warm embrace. They had long since dropped the formality of titles. They were simply David and Richard now, 2 brothers working side by side. "Morning. Ready for today's workshop?" "Ready as I'll ever be," Richard laughed. He was leading a session on being present, lessons from a reformed workaholic. His talks were always packed because he spoke from painful experience, and people connected with his honesty. As parents began arriving for the morning session, David watched Emma and Lily setting up the children's activity corner. The girls had been volunteering here every week since it opened. They ran art classes, helped with homework, and most importantly, gave these children the attention and love they desperately needed. "You know," Richard said quietly, standing beside David, "I still think about that day. The shooting." "I do too," David admitted. "I was so blind. So arrogant. I had everything, money, success, a beautiful daughter, and I was throwing it all away chasing more." Richard's voice grew thick with emotion. "You gave up everything to save us. You nearly died. And somehow, that became the beginning of both our real lives." David squeezed his friend's shoulder. "God works in mysterious ways. He took the worst moment and turned it into something redemptive." A young father approached them, nervously holding his daughter's hand. "Excuse me, are you David Chen?" "The David Chen?" David smiled humbly. "I'm David Chen, yes. I saw your story on the news years ago. It inspired me to never give up on my daughter, even when her mother left us. I just wanted to say thank you. These moments happened more often than David expected. His story had spread far beyond Riverside City. The book Richard wrote had become a bestseller, and the interview David gave had been viewed millions of times online. But David never sought fame. He just wanted to help people understand that love and sacrifice were always worth it. That afternoon, the center hosted a special event, a graduation ceremony for parents who had completed their job training program. 12 men and women stood proudly on the small stage, receiving certificates that represented new beginnings. David gave the keynote speech, something he still felt uncomfortable doing, but Richard had insisted. "When my wife Sarah died, I thought my life was over," David began, his voice carrying across the crowded room. "I was drowning in grief, struggling to pay bills, working myself to exhaustion. I felt alone, inadequate, afraid. I imagine many of you know these feelings." Heads nodded throughout the audience. "But here's what I learned: we are stronger than we think. Our love for our children gives us superhuman strength. And we don't have to do this alone. Community matters. Support matters. Having people who believe in us matters." He paused, looking at the graduates. "You 12 are proof of this. You came here broken, scared, uncertain. But you didn't give up. You showed up, did the work, supported each other, and now you're stepping into new opportunities. I'm so proud of each of you." The room erupted in applause. Parents hugged their children. Tears flowed freely, tears of joy, relief, and hope. After the ceremony, a young woman named Jessica approached David. She was one of the graduates, a single mother of 3 who had fled an abusive relationship and rebuilt her life from nothing. "Mr. Chen, I need to tell you something," Jessica said, her voice trembling. 2 years ago, I was ready to give up. I didn't think I could keep going. But then I saw your interview online. You said, 'Love makes us rich, not money.' Those words saved my life. They reminded me why I needed to keep fighting, for my kids, for love." David's eyes filled with tears. He hadn't known his words had traveled so far, touched so deeply. "Thank you for sharing that," he managed to say. "And look at you now, employed, strong, thriving. Your children are blessed to have you." Jessica hugged him, and David felt the weight of purpose settle over him once again. This was why he survived those bullets. This was why God had kept him alive. That evening, both families gathered at Richard's house for dinner, something they did every Friday without fail. Richard had indeed bought a smaller, warmer home, and it had become the gathering place for their extended family. Around the table sat David, Emma, Richard, Lily, David's sister Rachel, who had relocated to be closer to them, and occasionally other families from the community center who needed a place to belong. A toast, Richard raised his glass. "To the man who taught me everything that matters. To my brother, my friend, my hero, David Chen." "Stop it," David protested, embarrassed. "No, Dad, let him finish," Emma grinned. 10 years ago, I was a hollow man living a hollow life," Richard continued. "David showed me what real wealth looks like. It's not in bank accounts or fancy houses. It's right here, around this table. It's in the laughter of our daughters, the friendships we've built, the families we've helped, the love we share." "Here, here," everyone chimed in. Later, as David helped with dishes, Lily came up beside him. "Uncle David, I'm doing my college thesis on father figures and their impact on child development. Would you let me interview you?" "Of course, sweetheart. But wouldn't your dad be a better subject?" Lily shook her head. "I'm interviewing him too. But Uncle David, you're the reason my dad became the father he is today. You're the reason I grew up feeling loved and secure. You're as much my father as he is." David's throat tightened. "That means the world to me, Lily. I never told you this," Lily continued, "but I remember that day. The shooting. I remember watching through the car window as you ran toward the bullets. I remember seeing you fall. I thought you were dead, and I thought it was my fault because my dad was so mean to you. Oh, Lily. But then, when you survived, when you and Dad became friends, when everything changed, I realized I had witnessed a miracle. Not just you surviving, but love conquering everything. That miracle shaped who I am. It's why I want to be a teacher, why I want to help children, why I believe in second chances. David pulled her into a hug. You're going to be an amazing teacher. Your students will be blessed. As the evening wound down and families prepared to leave, David stood on Richard's front porch, looking up at the stars. Emma joined him, wrapping a blanket around his shoulders. Cold, Dad? A little. But happy. Emma leaned against him. Dad, do you ever wonder what would have happened if you hadn't run that day? If you had just grabbed me and left like everyone else? Sometimes, David admitted. But I don't dwell on it. I believe I was meant to run. I was meant to take those bullets. Not because I'm special, but because God had a plan bigger than I could see in that moment. You saved more than just their lives, Emma said thoughtfully. You saved Richard's soul. You saved Lily's childhood. And you saved all those families at the community center by showing them what's possible when one person refuses to give up on love. David smiled. You're wise beyond your years, princess. I learned from the best. They stood together in comfortable silence, father and daughter, watching the stars and counting their blessings. Richard stepped outside to join them. Beautiful night. Beautiful life, David corrected. The three of them stood there, this little family that had been forged through fire and bullets and pain and ultimately, redemptive love. You know what I'm grateful for? Richard said suddenly. I'm grateful for that day I was cruel to you, David. I'm grateful I was arrogant and stupid enough to almost lose everything. Because if I hadn't been, I never would have been forced to change. I never would have become the man I needed to be. That's grace, David said simply. Taking our worst moments and transforming them into our best lessons. Emma squeezed both their hands. And that's what we pass on. Not just the story of that day, but the story of what came after. The story of forgiveness, transformation, and love winning. Inside the house, Lily was showing the younger children from the community center a photo album, pictures of her and Emma through the years, of David and Richard working together, of the community center's opening day, of countless moments of joy built on the foundation of one man's sacrifice. This was legacy, David realized. Not fame or fortune, but love multiplied, sacrifice bearing fruit, one brave moment rippling forward through time, touching lives he would never know about, inspiring changes he would never witness. And that was more than enough. As they walked back inside together, David Chen, the single father who took bullets to save a pilot's daughter, knew with absolute certainty that he had lived a life worth living. The scars on his body were medals of honor. The pain had been the price of purpose. And the love he had given and received was the truest measure of a life well spent.